I'm Brian Bonneau. I have gone to this church for a little over 31 years, so just about exactly half my life. My parents were really good people. They were natives of Amador County, and me too. And I don't know how they do it these days, but back when I was a kid, if you were smart and good looking, you got to go to Amador. If you weren't, you had to go to Jackson. We kind of felt sorry for them, but it's just the way the world was. At 31, I needed to get my wisdom teeth out, so I went to the dentist. As I'm signing in, there's a spectacular blonde sitting over there. All I could think was, I want to get her. Let me get her. Let me get her. And I did. She's even more beautiful close up, and she had a voice like honey, and it was amazing. And so in no time, she was digging away at my bleeding gums, and I was sitting there falling in love with her, and which probably doesn't sound very romantic, but it was to me. We went on a couple of dates. She gave me a Bible and told me to go home and read the book of John. So I got to the part where this Jesus guy's lugging this big chunk of wood up the hill after he got beat up. And all of a sudden, it wasn't just a Jesus guy anymore. He is who he says he is. And I just started repeating that to myself, and I just started bawling like a baby because, he wasn't just a guy anymore. He was the living God. And, it's like I was blind and I could see. So my whole world got turned upside down. A few months later, we got married, and she was perfect. And I had a business with a partner, and it was going bananas, just growing like crazy. But so everything was perfect for like 8 or 10 years, and then things just started going sideways. And my business partner became impossible, so I tried to divide the property. We ended up in court, and it should have taken 2 years and took 15. A couple of years after that, I felt a lump in my wife's breast, and she had breast cancer, and it was not intermediate. It was stage 4 at that point already. And a couple of years after that, our son came home and was diagnosed with schizophrenia. About 5 years after that, my wife's remission ended, and she had to go back on chemo, but it was what they call palliative chemo. It wasn't a cure, just to keep her alive as long as they could. And so about 2 years later, it was November 1st, All Saints Day of 2013, and she was in bed, kind of in a coma, and I was holding her hand, and she finally stopped breathing, and my whole world got turned upside down again, but in a bad way. And the court stuff kept going on. At this point, we were already probably functionally bankrupt just because of the lawyers' bills, doctors' bills, 3 years of taking care of Susan, property wrapped up in court, all that. So eventually I had to do a bankruptcy. And so at that point, I'd lost everything I'd worked my whole life for. I was pretty angry at God from the time she was diagnosed. It probably wouldn't be too much to say I hated him, but the pain and the anger and the stress of what happened with my partner while Susan, what really made it bad was it happened while Susan was dying, and for what happened to her while she's dying, while our kids are watching their mom die, that was really hard to come to terms with and to deal with. And I couldn't, I told myself 1,000 times that I'd forgiven him for the pain that he caused all of us, but I knew in my heart that I hadn't. It was in April of 2018. I was sitting in Sinner's Row on the back wall of the church where we used to have a row, and Brian was preaching about forgiveness. The sermon was that it was not an option, it was a commandment. As a Christian, you had to forgive. But I still couldn't do it. And I know this sounds weird, probably sounds weird to you, but as I sat there, everybody disappeared in the church. And Brian disappeared, and it was filled instead with this white light, although over the stage was this kind of a golden, diffuse cone of golden light. And God didn't say a word to me, either audibly or in my mind. I didn't say anything. I just felt a huge weight of that unforgiveness that had been crushing me for years. It came off on my back. It was nothing I did. It was nothing I said. I didn't ask God to take it off of me. He just reached down and lifted it off of me. Maybe he knew I couldn't carry it any longer, but he took it, and it's never come back. And that allowed me to breathe again for the first time in 15 years probably. Until you've carried a burden like that, every morning you wake up and you put it back on, and it was kind of like being born again. That's what nobody can really give you, and that's what you can't give yourself, is the comfort and the peace. Because when you're in the middle of a storm, it's all turmoil. Your mind is in turmoil, your life is, and the only way that can be calmed, and the only person who can calm that is God. So I would tell anybody who is in the middle of a storm, just seek Him, and He will show you how to connect with Him, and He will give you the strength if you just seek it.